Alright everyone, it's Sam here. Welcome to my review of the 2015 Australian Grand Prix, the first round of the 2015 F1 season. And yeah, it was an interesting weekend I thought. I mean, I know Sunday didn't really deliver for a lot of people, but overall I think that the weekend in general was an interesting one. We learnt a lot, and I think overall there were plenty of talking points over the 3 days. So yeah, we're going to crack on with it straight away then. And obviously one of the first stories that we pretty much came to light pretty early on in the weekend was that the Manor team wouldn't be racing this weekend, which is a bit of a shame I guess, and I guess we'll have to wait and see just where they are in terms of pace, but I guess they're going to be pretty far back if they even can get the car running for a good amount of time. But it is a shame because as we saw, not a lot of cars making it to the finish today, so with a bit of luck, who knows, maybe they could have snatched a miracle point or something if they could have run this weekend. But luckily they didn't face any punishment for that, even though they were briefly under investigation. But yeah, hopefully they will be on the grid racing in Malaysia, and yeah, fill that grid up a bit more, because it has been a bit empty this weekend. And yeah, next thing then was McLaren, and well, I did predict that they would be quite far off early on in the season, but no, this I was not expecting, I have to admit. I really did not see them struggling this badly for just the general pace. I mean, I know the Honda engine is very underdeveloped at this stage, and they've got a long way to go because they're practically a year behind, but still, for a team as big as McLaren to be that far off was just really shocking, I thought. I mean, after practice, Jansen saying that if Manor didn't run, then they would probably be on the back row, and I thought there's no way that could be possible, and then it actually came true on Saturday, which really was a massive surprise for me. I mean, I dislike McLaren, as you may have guessed, but it was almost like it's almost like they were so bad, it almost felt bad to laugh at them in a way. But yeah, they do have a long way to go, I think, to be competitive. Longer than I thought anyway. I mean, I think it's starting to look like maybe this season they might struggle to get up there. I mean, I know Jenson Button saying that he would rather be in this situation now where they know they've got plenty more to give than be getting the best out of the car and being sort of in the low points like they have been for the last couple of years. But still, it doesn't seem likely that they're going to be making up multiple seconds over the course of a season. I mean, to me that just seems a bit unrealistic, but who knows, the team is bigger than McLaren, they could pull it off. And yeah, I guess it would be good for the sport overall if they did, because yeah, we need to see more competitive teams, I think it has to be said. Just too many teams at the moment are struggling, and yeah, I think that's what's sort of disappointing a few people really on race day today. But yeah, another team that was struggling then that surprised me quite a lot was Red Bull. I mean, I did predict that they would be a bit further off this year. I did think that the Renault engine would let them down a little bit, but yeah, I didn't expect them to be struggling this badly. I thought they would be at least close with Williams and Ferrari, but just a little bit off them. But no, Red Bull, they seem to really be in a bit of trouble at the minute, and it was really down to Daniel Ricciardo really to deliver the good performances on Saturday and Sunday to get them in the top 10 really. And it's a shame for Danny Kvyat that he didn't even get a chance on race day to even try and deliver some points for them, which, well, they almost certainly would have done, but what with the lack of finishes today. And yeah, I'm really surprised actually, have to be said. But what isn't a surprise is Christian Horner moaning, because that's pretty much all he's done since Red Bull stopped dominating. And well, I'm just bored of it, to be honest, and I can't stand I just can't stand the whole complaining when you're not winning. I mean, it's like it just doesn't seem sporty. I mean, even I'm a Ferrari fan, I really dislike the days when Luca de Montezemolo would always complain about the rule changes. I wasn't really that big of a fan of him. I'm kind of glad that sort of there's been big changes at Ferrari, and we've got sort of a different sort of different style of management now. But yeah, it's back to Christian Horner then, and as I say, I'm not really surprised that he was moaning. But honestly, it seems a bit weird that he's been blaming Renault a lot, because Toro Rosso seem to be sort of, I'd say they're pretty much on par with Red Bull, and they've got the same engine, and you wouldn't expect Red Bull to be struggling, like falling back to sort of Toro Rosso's level, because they normally do have the edge, because obviously sort of Toro Rosso is meant to be sort of the junior team. And yeah, it really is a surprise. It seems more than just the engine is the problem for Red Bull at the minute. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that plays out over the coming races. Next up, of course, in qualifying, we saw Valtteri Bottas. I mean, a little bit of a disappointing qualifying for him in 6th place, but then of course we found out that he'd injured his back during the qualifying session, which is that was not good at all. And of course it ended up with him not being declared fit to race for today, which is a massive shame, and another driver missing from the grid then. Of course, we're already missing Fernando Alonso from the grid this weekend, but of course he was at least replaced by Kevin Magnussen. But of course, after qualifying, it was too late for Williams to be sticking a reserve driver in there, so yeah, that means we obviously lost out on a driver on the grid for the race, which didn't help things at all. And yeah, it was a real shame then for Bottas. I mean, he certainly looked like someone who was going to deliver this season. I mean, I'm sure he still will, but yeah, that's just a bit of a setback for him now then. And yeah, hopefully we'll see him back in Malaysia, and hopefully Alonso too, because we really do need, I think, a full grid in Malaysia really to sort of get things back to sort of being sort of how they were, I guess. But yeah, that sort of brings me on to the next point I was going to say about, which was that only 15 cars started the race then, and well, it's just very unusual to see a grid that depleted in sort of the modern day. I mean, we saw the one-off that one time, of course, in 2005 at the US Grand Prix, where only 6 cars, the Bridgestone runners, started that race. But I think we're going back decades to find another race where so few starters, well, so few cars started the race, and it really is a massive shame. And it really, as I've said a few times already in this video, that was part of what made today's race, I think, just not that appealing to many people. It just didn't seem to be enough cars out there, quite frankly. And yeah, we lost a couple early on, and I think there were only 4 retirements overall in that whole race, but it just seemed like there was so much more because only 11 cars finished. And yeah, it was a real shame, I think. And yeah, as I say, I certainly hope that Bottas will be fit to race in Malaysia. Same with Alonso too, and hopefully Mana can get going as well, and we can have a 20-car grid for Malaysia. That would be the perfect, that would be, well, I guess the best way possible for sort of a return to F1 being sort of, I don't want to say back to its best, but you know, back to how we know it and enjoyed it last season, I guess. But yeah, Lotus then, who were one of the teams I was on about that dropped out very early on today, and yeah, massive shame for them then, who certainly look a lot quicker this season, but just didn't come together for him in the end this weekend. Pastor Maldonado then taken out in that first corner incident, although I have to say I do think it was his fault if anyone was to be blamed for that. I mean, I know there are a lot of factors going on in that first corner. I mean, we saw Vettel and Raikkonen. I don't think they quite banged wheels, but I know Raikkonen got forced out wide, and then Sainz hit him as well. And yeah, I guess it was all a little bit of a knock-on effect, but to me it looked like Maldonado just didn't seem to be aware of the cars on his inside. And yeah, not for the first time saying Maldonado not aware of something, but yeah, I think overall I think it was his fault that he ended up colliding with them there. And yeah, that was a shame for the Lotus team there. And then I think it was literally at the end of that lap, Grosjean stopped with a ECU problem or something. So yeah, real shame for Lotus then, but certainly looking like they've got much better pace this season. And yeah, I'm sure they'll be back in Malaysia looking, well, I'm sure they'll be back in the points certainly. And yeah, one team that did have a very good weekend, I thought, was the Ferrari team. I mean, I know that unfortunately Kimi Raikkonen didn't finish the race today. That was a real shame for him with that botched pit stop there, but overall I think for Ferrari fans like myself, and also Vettel and Raikkonen fans. I think there are plenty of positives to take away from this weekend. The car looks very good in qualifying and the race. It looks, I wouldn't say maybe it's quite as quick as Williams maybe. I think Bottas could have probably beaten the Ferraris if he hadn't had that problems in qualifying and obviously wasn't injured or anything. But nonetheless, Ferrari do look like they can challenge Williams, which is a very encouraging sign. Of course, we saw Vettel beat Massa to the podium today, of course. So yeah, that's very encouraging signs there. It looks like, say, if something does go wrong for Mercedes, and we have to assume that they're not going to go 20 races even without any slip-ups, that Ferrari will be there to pounce on one of those mistakes. And yeah, that is an encouraging sign. And yeah, certainly Vettel and Raikkonen looking much more like their former selves. I mean, 2014, we'd have to agree, was pretty dismal for both of them really, and they certainly look back on form today once they were in clear air. I mean, they seemed to be struggling with front end grip when they were in traffic, but overall, once they were in clear air, they had some blistering pace today, has to be said, beaten only by the Mercedes, you'd have to say. But yeah, it's a real shame for Kimi Raikkonen that, well, he first had that slow pit stop, and then the second time round the wheel didn't actually even get on properly, so yeah, that was race over for him, unfortunately. And yeah, understandably a lot of disappointed fans at that one. But overall, I think that there were encouraging signs still then from this weekend, because of course we saw Arriva Bene after both the pit stop incidents, down in the pit box asking the mechanics what was going on, and he seems to be a very good team principal. I think we have made a good call with him, it has to be said. And yeah, he looks like the kind of person who's going to be working towards making sure that kind of stuff doesn't happen, and making sure both drivers are getting the best chance possible here. And that is really what I like to see, because I think Ferrari's problem in the last few years is that they have been a bit blinded by making Alonso the #1 driver and just generally complaining about the rules and stuff. But Arriva Bene doesn't seem like that kind of guy. He seems more about making sure the drivers are getting on well. And I think even he was even quoted as saying something similar in an interview today, something about there's no point complaining about the rules, we just have to work to be quicker than Mercedes. And that's really what it's all about for every team. And I'm glad that he has that view, because it really will drive the team forward. And yep, another rant about Ferrari. Well, not a rant, I guess, but I've rambled on a bit, as I always do. Sorry, I can't help it because I'm a fan. But yeah, moving on to another upside of this weekend, and that was the rookies, and they all very much impressed. I mean, apart from Will Stevens and Roberto Merri, but well, of course we didn't even get to see them. So yeah, the others, Carlos Sainz, Max Verstappen and Felipe Nasr, all very impressive performances from them this weekend, as we said. Well, who could have predicted that Felipe Nasr would finish in 5th place today? I mean, even with all the retirements that they were, and even though he was nearly a lap down, I mean, to finish 5th in a Sauber on your debut, that is very impressive, it has to be said. He was comfortably ahead of Marcus Ericsson as well, who also got his first points today, which was sort of overshadowed a bit really, with his teammate sort of stealing the main honours for that team. And of course we saw Carlos Sainz Jr., he had a bit of an eventful race, has to be said. Of course he clipped the back of Kimi Raikkonen at the start, and then he also had a botched pit stop as well, in fact. And yeah, he was battling with Ericsson late on in the race as well. And yeah, he came home in 9th place, and an impressive debut for him. Max Verstappen was on for an even better one. I think he was in 6th place or something when he had that power unit failure, or I can't remember exactly what it was. It was a mechanical fault, of course. But I know he had been running as high as 6th place as well at one point. I don't know if that's where he was when he had the problem, but yeah, he was comfortably inside the points, and it was a massive shame for him that he did have that problem, because, I mean, of course he would have broken the record for the youngest point scorer by miles today. I mean, I'm still confident that he is going to do it. I mean, I'd say probably as soon as Malaysia, but I mean, he's bound to finish in the points at some point, of course. But it was just a shame they didn't get to do it today on his debut. I mean, that would have been quite a story for the 17-year-old on his debut. And yeah, I think we really do need to make a count of how many times they mention how old he is, because they seem to cram it into every sentence mentioning him at the moment, but you can't really blame them, can you? Because, I mean, he turns, what, 17 like 6 months ago, and like he's here in F1. I mean, I went karting for the first time on my 17th birthday and I was aching for days afterwards, so yeah, it really is an unbelievable achievement what Max is doing here this season, getting into F1 and showing potential, as we said, and a lot of maturity as well, even with that DNF today. I mean, you can see why he's regarded by Helmut Marko as the next big thing and a real special talent, because, well, I think we can see that he is the next big thing, definitely, and it's going to be really interesting to see what he can do for the rest of this season and how, of course, the rest of his career plays out, of course. But of course, the main thing this weekend overall has to be just the dominance of Mercedes, and more specifically Lewis Hamilton. Pole position on the Saturday. I mean, a few people thought that, well, a lot of people actually thought that Nico Rosberg would take pole position, but he seemed to have a bit of a slip up on his first run in Q3, and then he just, after that, just seemed to knock his confidence quite a bit, and yeah, Hamilton taking pole fairly comfortably in the end, and just in the race he wasn't challenged. I mean, Mercedes, I don't think they were running at full power, but yeah, I think they were probably running around about the same engine settings all race, and Hamilton just comfortably had the lead over Rosberg. I mean, every time Rosberg started to close in a little bit, Hamilton just banged in another fastest lap, and yeah, it was frustrating to watch, I guess, but yeah, I think Mercedes just at the top of their game, and so was Lewis Hamilton at the minute. I mean, I said before in my preview video that of course Hamilton, having won the championship now, was a massive mental advantage, and you can just see it in his driving. I think I would, even though I don't like him, I would say that at the moment he is the best driver on the grid, better than like Alonso, Ricciardo, all of them. I would say Hamilton at the moment is the best driver, even if he does have the best car. I mean, I think, yeah, oh, I've already said it, but yeah, Rosberg, I think he still can challenge Hamilton, but honestly, he is going to have to start doing it sooner than later. Of course, we can't forget that, of course, Hamilton retired from this race last season, and then he beat Rosberg over the next 4 races. So Hamilton's already got a good start this time. So I mean, it's kind of scary to think what he could achieve, like, by the time we get to Europe. I mean, I guess it's kind of unlikely that he would win all 4 of the first races, or the first 5 really, then, because he won Spain as well. But yeah, there's so many things that could play a part into it. Of course, we saw how the momentum changed when Hamilton had won 4 in the bounce, and then that incident in the qualifying for Monaco just upset the balance for about 4 or 5 races after that. So there's just so many little things that could play a part into it, but at the moment it looks like Hamilton is the unstoppable force, and it will be up to Rosberg to see if he can stop it, because it didn't look like any other team is going to be getting involved in that particular scrap this season, unfortunately. So yeah, we really are relying on certainly Rosberg to take the fight to Hamilton like we did last season. And yeah, that's pretty much all I wanted to talk about then in this review of the Australian Grand Prix. Overall, the race itself wasn't particularly good, but it was certainly an interesting weekend, and I'm very much looking forward to the next one in 2 weeks at Malaysia, one of my favourite tracks, of course, and I should have a little preview video for that coming up nearer at the time. So yeah, if you do have any opinions on this race, if you agreed or disagreed with any of the things I've said, then feel free to leave them in the comments, and if you did enjoy the video, leave a like, and I'll see you next time, where I'll probably be returning to one of my career series. So thanks for watching, and goodbye.